The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with my co-host Tony Palmieri. On this edition, we're very pleased to welcome two of the candidates who were fortunate enough to make it through the primary election in February. To my left is Wayne Traska. He is seeking his first term on the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education. And to the left of him is incumbent Dennis Kavanaugh, who is seeking yet another term. Dennis, how long have you been on the school board now?
I'm going for my fourth term.
This is your fourth term, and they're three-year terms. So welcome to both of you. Thanks very much for being here. And congratulations to both of you on making it through the primary. It's always a grueling time for candidates, I know. You know, what was your reaction to how the primary election went, first of all?
I was a little bit surprised on the significant grouping. It was clear that the incumbents were all lumped at the top. Mm-hmm. The challengers who made it through were also lumped, but distance between them. There's some ground to make up, but I think that now is the time to make some differentiation.
What do you think that says, that they were grouped, all the incumbents were grouped at the top and the challengers down below? What in your opinion does that say? Well,
I think at the primary level it says, okay, we know these people, let's make sure that we get a chance to see what they have to say. Name recognition is important. That's what I've been working on, as well as talking about the issues. I think now it's a whole new ballgame. We all start back at zero. So sure. April 4th, there'll be new numbers.
There you go. Well, Dennis, what do you think the results say?
I think that you're correct in that the incumbents have an advantage. But on the other hand, there's a lot of exposure. Some people already have identified the issues and are. I kind of looked at it, sometimes there was a level of satisfaction that there was part of it, ongoing tension on the board. I think some of the public think that that's a good balance. But I mean, I have to be excited. I mean, again, no one in this room does exit polling, so we have no idea why
Sure.
vote went high. So it's kind of a name thing, and you just kind of keep plugging on. You try to get as much exposure as you can.
Sure.
Well, Wayne, what is it about the current board that you think is not going well?
Well, it's not as much about what's not going well with the board as what's happening in the district. I've been concerned about a few things in the district as I've looked at things from a parent with young children's perspective. Specifically the facilities utilization and the overcrowding and simultaneous underutilization of our facilities, sure. Maintenance concerns and so on.
Well, Dennis, what has the board done about facilities? That has been an area that has been talked about a lot.
I think with the current gathering the input from the community to look at the facilities, I think we're coming at a time and stuff where the community needs to provide some real solid input, and the board needs to react to it and have the courage to react to it. That says, if we're going to continue having 27 schools, there's a cost to that. But if that's going to change, that has to be addressed.
But have you been happy with the level of planning that the administration has done as regards facilities?
I think when I look back, we've made 3 efforts at trying to, in the last 6 years, to change things that were kind of blown away by in that the process was attacked, not the outcome. And I think so that there's been efforts been made. I think after the referendum, we made a commitment to at the last successful referendum, we made a commitment to maintain a certain level of maintenance. Now, unfortunately, I think we've kind of frozen at that 850,000 that it should have been going up a little bit.
Okay. Wayne, do you think that that we've seen poor planning as regards facilities? I mean, has it become like a crisis when it shouldn't have been, for example?
I think some of the issues that we see today, there were telltale signs quite some time ago. I mean, the projections of the enrollments at specific schools clearly show that there was something looming on the horizon. We need to plan then and make decisions at that point.
So are you suggesting then that the board over the last 9 years has not been doing its job as well as it could have?
I'm not suggesting it, I'm saying that some decisions needed to be made, and they weren't.
They weren't, and right, and you disagree with that?
I think that we were making some efforts out there, and we weren't able to move the agendas forward. There was a change of board members, and I think every time there's a change, we move out with a certain set of agendas to look at issues, and it becomes the committee of 300 became a reason for some people to become elected, and that became a laughing point at times. Whereas there was an effort to really gain the community support for doing some things different. And I think that became a basis for ridicule at times.
All right, sure.
Well, one of the things with respect to facilities, and this is really more a question for you, Dennis, I guess, because you've been on the board a while, you know, is the subject of roofs. You know, we've got schools with roofs in disrepair, and one of the big things being discussed in the community amongst taxpayers is, you know, roofs that not just need repair, but are supposedly still under warranty, but the warranties are not being pursued for whatever reason. Can you maybe address that for us?
I think we should clarify at this point, all the roofs that we're talking about repairing have, the warranties are lapsed. All these roofs are at least 10 years old. So that's the beginning standard, and most of the bulk of the roofs in this first run are between 20 and 25 years old.
Okay.
And what we're talking, why this one's more expensive than the previous one is that if you on your own home, when you put up the second, when your house needs the first shingling done, you can put a second layer on top and it's done. Now you can't put a third layer on top, so you have to peel it back off and go down to the roof structure. And so that's more expensive than just putting another roof on top. And what we found in some of the other jobs that were done, water got encapsulated, and we had some other issues. But I think this is an effort, and for the public to understand, everyone we're looking at now has the warranty is gone. And the efforts with this new roofing system is that there's one person, one contact for the roofing that would be the warranty. Not the installer is going to have this part, the materials this part. It's going to be one person that's going to go to, and that person is going to be the warranty holder, and we're going to go to them rather than a variety of sources trying to get the warranty work done.
Okay. We're taping this on March 16th, and just in the last few days or so, the new schedule, proposed schedule for next year, has been made public, and it includes 2 fewer early release Wednesdays than the current year's schedule. As a parent of children in the district, Wayne, how do you feel about the new schedule that's being proposed?
Well, I think it is going to work a little bit better for parents with 2 fewer days. Again, my concern stems back to the communication issues. I believe we have communication issues that need improvement in the district. For example, they held a special forum for people to voice their concerns and opinions about the new proposed calendar as far as keeping it on Wednesdays, early releases, and so on. Nowhere in that discussion was it introduced to us that, well, we're going to take a couple Fridays now and change them to Mondays. Again, the communication wasn't there. So I don't know where that occurred, but that wasn't part of the proposal that parents were aware of before that forum. And that concerns me.
Dennis, how would you respond to that?
Well, I'm pleased with the calendar reconfiguration. We did a couple things with obviously going from 17 to 15. And the other thing, to address some other concerns that were raised, we tried to go first, third, so that was you could actually plan, like garbage day comes, well, this is, so, I mean, we're trying to get that part a little simpler. The change of some days from Friday to Monday really comes down to, in classes, there are some classes that are where the teachers come to building, and if you have everything on Friday all the time, you need that class is always shorted. so we tried to do some changes back and forth, and one of them happened to fall that the semester ended, and we just brought the recording day to Monday.
Okay.
So that was the, it was not an effort to give different days off. It was just trying to get so we were having the teachers that were doing that floating, make sure we had a balance with that.
Okay. Wayne, you're obviously aware of the 500 signatures, or 600, however many it was, that was sent to the board last year about the early release on Wednesdays, and the board was unresponsive to that. I mean, the plea was to reopen negotiations about the calendar. They didn't do it. What was your view on that? Did you want to see the board reopen negotiations, or at least attempt to?
I would have liked to have seen more communication to the reasons why they were reluctant to do so. Again, I'm less concerned about which day of the week it was or the early release itself as much as I'm concerned about the communication. Without that communication link, we're lacking trust. Parents don't trust that decisions are being made in their best interests.
But what was the problem with the communication in that situation? People came to the board with a petition. The board said, all right, we see your petition, but we're going to remain where we are. That's clear communication, isn't it? Where was the breakdown?
The breakdown was, this is why we're not going to put any further consideration on your petition's request.
Well, what was your explanation? You supported staying with the calendar the way it was, right?
Yes, I did.
Those petition signatures had no impact on you?
Well, of course, I mean, to say that we wouldn't have paid attention to, but we tried to go back to the community and say, because remember, this calendar was different from the year before. And the year before, we had Fridays off and early and late starts.
Right.
And there was the uproar over that one, when we tried to do the collaborative time in that format, was much greater than the 500 signatures. So that we came back to that with the 500 signatures, and then we tried to, I mean, I think the board made an effort to try to explain where we were coming from, and that we're trying to use the Wednesday because of its day of week for athletics and other co-curriculars. And we tried to spend time on what collaborative was. I think that the community understands collaborative now, which is the communication that came back. Now the effort. I mean, and every time somebody brings forth a petition, because it's not, the outcome doesn't change, doesn't mean it wasn't considered.
It wasn't considered. But we had Mrs. Weinsheim on the show a few weeks ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe she said that had those parents packed the chambers, she didn't use that language, but that's what she meant, right? Then maybe the board would have been more willing to go further, say reopen negotiations. For Dennis Kavanaugh, does it make a difference to you if 500 people show up as opposed to seeing names on a petition?
I saw response from 500 people who had concern about it. I don't need to have 500 people say the same thing to me. I mean, the petition, I can get it, and we were trying to respond to what and we tried to clarify what the petitioners were really asking for. Was it the Wednesday? Was it this?
All right.
And we had some difficulty trying to define what the issue was. Was it the collaborative time, the principle of collaborative time, the Wednesdays, the early outs?
All right, you're shaking your head, I believe.
I firmly believe that the concern wasn't the collaborative time or the theory of collaboration. There may be some people are concerned, but I think everyone is pretty much in agreement that there is something to be gained with this collaboration, that the teachers can come together and improve our educational process by doing collaboration.
Well, let me ask one more question, Michelle.
Sure, go ahead.
If people, Wayne, were very upset, there was another round of discussions on the calendar this year, and we didn't see waves of parents show up upset. How would you explain that?
Well, there could be a couple explanations, not the least of which is apathy, as well as the survey that came out prior to that meeting, which really in my mind wasn't a survey, it was a piece of propaganda, if you will, on, again, this is why we have collaboration, this is why we're going to do this is why we're going to move forward, and this is the best time and day, and we're going to, essentially they said, we're going to do it this way. In my opinion, people said, well, it looks like it's a done deal.
Right.
I'm tired of fighting City Hall. I'm not going to even show up.
Is another possibility that the majority of people were happy with what the board did?
I guess that would be possible, but in my own personal interactions with folks,
You're still hearing the
I've heard more
frustration?
people who had frustrations. I don't even recall one person who said, "This is great, I love it."
Okay, Cheryl.
Okay. For both of you, you know, the district at one time, and maybe still does, consider one of its top priorities to be the restructuring of grades K through 6 through 12, rather, and the district's at-risk programs. For each of you, then, as I said, do you feel that that should still be a top priority of the district? And if so, would you support a direction of monies for making sure that those programs are kind of left intact?
Are you talking specifically on the at-risk programs?
Well, both the restructuring of 6 through 12 as well as the at-risk programs.
Well, I believe that we need to start at the middle school level first. That will more specifically address the freshman failure rates. See if that works. I have a concern about moving too far forward on this, expending funds that we don't necessarily know where they're going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
We move in that direction, it's going to be very difficult to back up.
Okay.
We've committed ourselves, we're going to have to pay for it.
All right. Dennis, what about you?
This has been a board effort for 4 years to get this rolling. I mean, I'm really pleased with it. I mean, I look at the at-risk one. I mean, the at-risk package came in at a significant amount of money. And when the administration was able to rework, the administration took the principles of what they were trying to accomplish and ended up doing it for 4 teachers for about $220,000 versus the 1-point-some million. So, I think a similar act will occur when we look at the high school thing. But I'm thinking that we need to move forward, because this is the block grant and our current restructuring, because even our middle school now, it's been going on in the 6th grade, it's moved into the 7th grade, and next year it'll be, and what we're doing there is we're increasing the math and science blocks, or periods, so that that's coming forward to the high school now. And that's why the high school is looking at the AB blocks, or AB scheduling, and I think this is a structure to hang other things onto. Because I think in Oshkosh, in some ways and stuff, we're still using a model that's promoting a, and I don't want to, but the student body is equipped to do a manufacturing job. And I think what's been happening and stuff is that we need to ratchet it up, that we end up with a student body that can do at minimum that job, but then be in a position that if a business comes into town and looking for a higher skilled labor force, we're able to produce that. We're not going to get that with 2 years of math and 2 years of sciences coming out, with the bulk of our students coming out with that. We need to begin the process of moving this forward. And I think this is a beginning. Now, if the money we can't free it up or swing it around, we can certainly phase it in by not requiring the increase of credits. We can maybe keep some study halls in place to absorb some of the structural things going on, the cost, because a study hall is cheaper than a classroom. And I think we can do some of those things so we can phase it in. Maybe we can get it rolling, and then we do the freshman, sophomore, and hit the juniors in over a 3-year rollout.
I appreciate what you're saying. You know, you said you've been trying to do this for 4 years, and it seems like so much, and it's not necessarily just a criticism, it's an observation. So much of what this current board does, and even some of your prior boards, it seems to take forever to get things done. You know, borders and redesigning the borders, all of this, or the boundaries, all of this seems to take forever. Why? I mean, what is the stumbling block here, if you will?
If you think it's slow from the outside, we should be on the inside. I mean, this is a big ship to turn. I mean, and in some ways and that stuff, when you look at curriculum changes, you're looking at modifying the teaching pattern of 825 independent contractors that are working on your site. But it takes time, and even with this current one, Cheryl, if you look at it, we have aligned the curriculum as part of this process too, so that a math curriculum goes from we now have in place a math curriculum that goes from first grade to 12th grade. And we should be eliminating that point where the previous teachers, the 6th grade teacher said the 5th grade teacher didn't teach it, because we know that's the outcome right now. But it's slow, and it pulls my teeth out. But sometimes it comes down, if you're going to do something like this, you need to do it right, and to bring everyone along. Because the other thing I think in this organization, and maybe it's unique to this one, a top-down, we're going to turn it this way, meet so much resistance that the children end up getting shortchanged in the process.
Is part of the problem, Dennis, and let me focus this to Wayne also, my feeling about school boards, and this is again not a criticism, I think it's an observation, you have to work with parents. Parents get upset if you do anything that's going to shake them from what they perceive as a comfortable routine. The best example is boundaries. I mean, my gut level feeling is that boards don't like to change boundaries because it will upset a chunk of parents. It has to. So Wayne, if you're get elected to the school board, would you be willing to make a tough boundary decision, even if it's going to upset part of your constituency?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely, without a doubt. I've talked to parents, I've gone to parent site committee meetings, I've gone to PTO meetings, and what I'm hearing by far and large is you need to make a change, you need to make a decision, let's get this over with. Because they're already feeling doing nothing is going to create problems, is creating problems.
But is that the message you get from the inside? Are parents saying, fix this, change this?
Parents are beginning to listen to it. They're starting to see it. I think
they're saying fix it as long as it affects somebody else.
I mean, it's kind of like not in my neighborhood. You're right.
Yeah.
And there's that sentiment out there. And the other thing, when you look at it, change is the most difficult thing there is. Now, when the evil school board is messing with your Johnny, or perceived as that, then it becomes personal.
But Dennis, how would you respond to the criticism that this current board especially has been unwilling to make these difficult, tough decisions? I mean, what has been done on boundaries in the last 3 years?
In the last 3 years, the last boundary change is when we changed the boundary for Tipler, and we took that section north of west of 41, and that I mean that was a boundary change. I think that was 4 years ago.
Okay, right. So in the last 3 years, has it been just avoidance of it? We know it's been a problem.
Because if you go back, there was a decision made that until there was a certain split at the high school, we would let it go, because the community said we're willing to pay for that difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. I mean, when you look at every other district around us, a boundary change is an annual event.
Yeah.
And people, in spite of what they may say, don't move their houses as the boundaries change. And I think as a board member, we need to ensure that we're providing a quality education at all of our sites.
Sure.
And I think that's the issue that we need to promote constantly, that whether you're going to a Traeger or a Smith or E. Cook, those are all good schools.
Yes, same quality everywhere. Sure.
Well, we've heard a lot about changing insurance carriers as a way to save the district money, and that could conceivably save a tremendous amount of money for the district in these tight budgetary times. But changing insurance carriers is difficult when you've got contracts and unions and MEDARB and all this kind of stuff. So how do you go about doing that? And for you, Wayne, if elected, for you, Dennis, if re-elected, how will each of you work to build those coalitions, to build those relationships that help foster some kind of willingness to compromise, to get past the impasse, so that everyone is on the same page and working together rather than against each other? Why don't you, as the incumbent, go first, Dennis?
I mean, I think I first like to answer is that the 2.2 million that's frequently been quoted around and stuff was a result of the board asked Jabez to come up with a similar plan and put a price tag on it. And so they put together a plan that was a blending of a long-term care, this is that. So it wasn't one carrier, but with multiple carriers, and it was a package, and it was at 2.2 million. And of saving over, so that would be 2 contracts ago. That would have been the saving on that contract. And what we looked at is the for the teacher's perspective, in that insurance is a condition of bargaining, a mandatory condition of bargaining. It was, what gain is there for us to give away our solid insurance plan? And at the time and stuff, there was an unwillingness of the board to give them the difference in salary. Now, on the other hand, I think, so that's, but on the other hand, when we look at the relationship between the board and the teachers union right now, I think we have a relationship going on that's respectful, and I think that's a healthy sign. If you look at the insurance, if you look at the last 2 contracts, including this one, there was changes to the plan. There was changes to the co-pays for the insurance card. This time is the first time they've elected to go to a co-pays and deductibles on the medical part of it.
Okay.
So they're recognizing that they have to get a lesser plan for the amount of money that we're allowing. And it's because we've maintained, you can, if you will, in the 3A, part of it, it's your money and there's how much we can do about it. But we need the right to make sure that our beginning salary is competitive. We need to be able to recruit quality teachers, and we're not going to give that up. And so we maintain a balance, and we've been using a consensus basis for it, and it takes a lot of time, but we've been able to deal with issues in an environment that talks about issues and not about personalities.
Okay.
So I think that's healthy.
Okay, go ahead, Wayne.
I think everyone on both sides of the table can agree that this is an expensive proposition. Healthcare costs are rising faster and faster. Restructuring those costs is absolutely necessary in the long term. Can we do it all in one fell swoop? No. We need to make some logical steps along the way. Both parties can agree. One option is a 2-tier system. You know, let's not change the plan for teachers at this point on, but maybe new teachers start at a different level. Keep it fair for people at different levels. That's one option. But we need to make some progress. An adversarial relationship isn't going to make us go anywhere. We need to come to the table together and know, hey, it's not taking things away. It's let's try and spend our money better.
Sure. And we've got about a minute and a half or so left. Do you have a real short question?
Well, I don't know if it's short. If the administration says we need to go to referendum, say for restructuring, are you willing to go to referendum?
Absolutely not. Not for restructuring.
Not for restructuring.
Not for restructuring. Referendums, in my opinion, are not something that should be to fund ongoing expenses.
Okay. So under no conditions for that issue.
Right.
All right. Restructuring and referendum?
I've been around the district long enough to say that would it be a priority? Would it be an awful low priority? I think I would have to see what the argument's being made.
Okay.
I don't think I can carte blanche say no.
Okay.
Okay, very quickly, in about 20 seconds, why don't each of you look into camera 3, tell folks why they should vote for you on Tuesday, April 4th. Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, I think I would encourage some the voters to look at me as a solid candidate. I believe over the last 9 years I've been able to bring a level of dignity and respect to the board level. I try not to personalize issues, and I'm always concentrating in my decision-making process on how will the students benefit today and how will the future students be able to benefit tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Wayne?
I'm Wayne Traska. I think that every kid deserves a chance. You deserve a choice. On April 4th, choose Wayne Traska to increase the trust, communication, and have financial responsibility and accountability at this school board. I want your children to be well educated today, tomorrow, and years to come.
All right, very good. Thanks to both of you again for being here, and best of luck to you in a few weeks from now. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Dennis McHugh, who is seeking his first term on the Oshkosh Common Council. We'll be right back.
We just escaped.
I escaped.
I escaped.
By foot.
Run across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in the forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz along with Tony Palmieri, and we're now joined by Dennis McHugh, who is seeking his first term on the Oshkosh Common Council. We did ask Paul Esslinger to be here. He had consented, and then earlier today he contacted Tony and apparently didn't want to contact me for whatever reason, said that he had a conflict. So Tony's going to read a statement. I think it's kind of a political statement from Mr. Esslinger. Too bad he couldn't be here to do it himself.
I'll read
ahead,
the statement
Tony.
and then we'll frame a question to Mr. McHugh from it. Paul says, because of a conflict, I am unable to appear in this program. I ask that you tune into the League of Women Voters Forum on March 23rd, where I will be answering the League's questions as well as those submitted by audience members. I also ask that you listen carefully to other candidates' answers to questions so you can make a determination of who you feel would best represent you this election. It has been a distinct honor and privilege to serve as a Common Council representative for the past 6 years. With your continued faith and support, I will continue to fight to protect your hard-earned dollar. I will continue to ask questions and demand answers to the issues that confront our city. I will be accountable to you, my boss. In closing, I encourage you to feel free to contact me personally with any concerns or questions you may have. My phone number is 426-9750. I respectfully ask for your vote on April 4th.
And of
Paul
course,
Esslinger.
of course, some of those questions that people might want to ask Mr. Esslinger is, you know, why he seems to feel it's okay for him to accept contributions from folks, then graciously step aside from voting on that, but at the same time making a proclamation that they wouldn't have been buying a vote had he voted, but other counselors apparently they are having votes bought. Why he signed a confidentiality agreement along with Mrs. Shireman on the Five Rivers project. Why he did not file a complaint against his own council members for the closed session being held on February 14th, and why he missed an important goal-setting meeting where the goals for City Manager Dick Wolink were set. He apparently missed that meeting on the 18th of February because he apparently was playing in a cribbage tournament. So those may be some of the things that you want to address with Mr. Esslinger.
Well, let's
because we would have asked those
well,
questions.
Let's get to Dennis McHugh. We'll pick up on one of those.
Yes.
As we said, Paul did sign a confidentiality agreement with a developer over Five Rivers. If you get elected to the Common Council, would you ever sign a confidentiality agreement with a developer?
I would never meet with the developer on my own. I think it goes without saying that any elected body, a member of that body, can never act on their own in the interest of the body, or in the absence of the interest of the whole body. The view by others that they may have compromised the body as a whole, it should be sufficient to never try to meet someone on their own, and of course not to sign a confidentiality agreement.
Right.
That sends up all kinds of red flags. What was it about? Who knows? Only they know.
Mm-hmm. So what about on the general issue of open government, Dennis? you attended the meeting as an audience member the night the council went into closed session. I had the sense sitting there that you were not thrilled with what they were doing. Did you find that to be an inappropriate closed meeting?
I did. In fact, wasn't this the one where the meeting had to do with the resolution they passed before the executive session?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Yeah. And I thought that was extremely irregular. And in fact, I mentioned it to a council member that it seemed to me, because you were attending the closed meeting, which dealt with the resolution you just passed, the cart before the horse, that there was something that smelled there. And I really do believe that they should have taken the advice of some of the council members and obtain a determination from the Attorney General's office, and then schedule. In fact, I think, sir, that you even suggested that.
Yeah.
And then, and only then, go into that executive session. I don't think that week or 3 or 4 days, whatever it would have taken, would have negatively affected it. You can always conduct a special meeting any day you want. We wouldn't have had to wait another 2 weeks.
Right, exactly. Cheryl?
Well, you know, that whole thing concerns, of course, Five Rivers. We've been hearing about and seeing a lot of things about Five Rivers, not as much as I think any of us are really comfortable with, but nonetheless, it is first and foremost in the news these days. What is your impression of the Five Rivers project? Just a couple nights ago, rather, they extended the deadline, of course, to break ground, and that helps him get his financing in order. What's your impression of this project overall?
Well, unfortunately, Cheryl, we can't develop an impression other than the negative one, because everything has been done in secret. I sense around the community a growing apprehension of faith in that project, especially upon the council receiving the request for an extension. Obviously, this gentleman cannot raise the funds necessarily to do the job, and let's say today he can do it. What's to say that during the 27-year course of events before the taxpayers start seeing a so-called profit on this, if he can't get the money today, how in the heck is he going to be able to follow through for 27 years and guarantee us a payout at the end?
Yeah.
Well, that's true, and you know, along with this, I think one of the things that certainly has concerned me, and I think it's concerned you too, Tony, is the fact that nobody seems to be looking at the viability of this project. You know, everybody says, "Oh, that's not our purview to do."
That's the most basic question.
Well, exactly. I mean, when you've got condos, whether for investment purposes or not, at the prices that these folks are setting, especially with the Pioneer doing essentially the same thing but with their own money, I just don't know that this is a viable project. And nobody seems to be addressing that. The Plan Commission says that's not within our purview to ask those kinds of questions. We just look at zoning type things. The council doesn't seem to be asking questions. We don't know what the redevelopment authority is. At what you've worked in government for a long time, albeit on the school board, but you know, at what juncture does the viability of a project become somebody's business?
Cheryl, it becomes their business when we enter into a contract where the public is not held harmless. Hopefully this contract they're developing will contain language that in case of the failure of the Five Rivers project, the taxpayers will be held 100% harmless. I think that is what's holding this project up. That the developer is unwilling to do this. LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. It sounds, with a little bit we taxpayers generally know about corporations and liability, it looks like the goal of this developer is to have none of his money in it, a lot of our money in it already, and the bank's money or whomever. And so that's the point where you have to be concerned when we start putting our neck on the line. And I'm not sure that, in fact, I don't think that has happened yet. But in the city's desire to get this project in Oshkosh, I'm concerned that some compromises will be made in the near future to put us in a liability state sometime in the future.
Well, you know, and with that, and maybe this was going to be one of the questions you asked, Tony, I don't know, but, you know, there's two pay options here. There's the direct pay, which creates greater risk for the taxpayers, and the pay-as-you-go, which puts us in a much better position from a risk standpoint. You know, this project will probably come before the new council once it's seated in April. If you can look at the polls from the primary and gaze into a crystal ball, you will be on that council. Which way will you vote on this, for the direct pay or the pay-as-you-go, or will you just say, you know, I'm not for this?
Well, undoubtedly, well, first of all, if the taxpayer is not held harmless 100%, I will not support the project. But without a doubt, the only option, in my view, would be the pay-as-you-go, where we are held at least the least amount of harmless, that we have the least amount of risk.
Yep.
Okay.
Dennis, a question people in the community ask me is, why are you running? That is, you served on the school board a long time, you're a retired city employee, you've got many accolades on the school board, you had your detractors also, of course. But what people ask me is, what was it that pushed you into running for the Common Council? Was it something this council has done, or have you been thinking about it for a while?
I have not been thinking about it for a while. It's the fees.
The fees, okay.
Not so much the fees themselves in the absence of nothing else. It's the priorities we have set. For example, while we're establishing fees because we can't live within the governor's 2% limit, we establish fees to cover extra spending for what I consider frivolous projects, such as the $570,000 floating boat dock, which Oshkosh citizens generally are not going to use, and we have to pay 1/2 up. The $110,000 remodeling of the skate park over by Garbage Hill. At the same time, we are turning out hundreds of streetlights. Little things that mean a lot to the city where we are losing, and what are we really gaining? A floating boat dock for our share of $287,000. And we're, as we speak, building a bear and elk exhibit, hopefully not in the same place. But but anyway, this is what really bothers me. It's the priorities.
What about that garbage fee?
The garbage fee, my opinion, is unnecessary. I think we should live within our means.
All right.
We should have lived within the governor's 2% plan. If we're going to charge fees, then why don't we charge a fee for playing tennis on the lighted tennis court at Menominee Park? Why don't we charge a fee for spraying the goose poop off of the jogging track out Menominee Park?
Yeah.
Why don't we charge a fee for you know, the splash parks? Where is this all going to end?
No.
How can you pick on one segment of the city and not the others?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, you know, you have made it very clear from day one that if you are elected, you will bring forward some type of resolution to have that garbage fee repealed.
Yes.
Now, that, of course, I think will probably garner you votes from all over the city, but the question gets begged then, where will you make up the difference in the money?
Well, I won't make up the difference. That's the job of our city manager, Dick Wallink. I think the council should establish a budget or a percentage of increase, whatever method you want to use. Give those running orders to the city manager, have him establish the priorities through his management system, and have him decide what to cut. I'm not going to decide that. I'm not an expert at all city affairs, and it isn't up to me, the individual council member. It's up to me to establish the spending limit, and then let the city manager take the heat for the priorities he has set.
Okay. All right.
People have wondered, if Dennis McHugh gets elected to the council, is he going to micromanage the city administration? Are you going to be a thorn in the side of the bureaucrats in City Hall? What is going to be your approach toward the city manager and the other department heads?
Well, since I decided since the day I decided to become a candidate, I have been at City Hall almost every day trying to learn.
Already.
Trying to learn.
Have you really?
There's a lot to learn. On the Board of Education, my 15 years there were generally dealt with programs.
Yeah.
With the city, the main emphasis is financing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge task
Sure
to learn all of the ins and outs of all of the financing mechanisms and how they interact with each other. And so, yeah, you can call it what you want, micromanaging. In some cases, I think somebody better do some micromanaging around here.
Yeah.
When I ask questions, sometimes people don't know the answer. They don't know where to find the answer. They don't know how things became the way they are. Someplace people I ask questions of don't know why things are the way they are.
Like, can you give us some examples?
Oh, I'd rather not be specific right now.
Okay.
A lot of the things they're doing are under, well, let's say I'm investigating things and I'm not totally done with them, and I don't want to cast any aspersions on any department, any person, or their programs, but there are some suspicions of mine that there are some things occurring that aren't well, are nothing illegal or immoral, or but maybe a little on the unethical side, where they're not bringing full disclosure to the public and to the council, for example. Some of those things are occurring.
Okay. All right.
As you know, last year the voters passed a referendum to elect the mayor in Oshkosh. We now elect the mayor. But that mayor remains without executive type of power.
Right.
Do you believe that Oshkosh needs a mayor with more power?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I think the mayor should have veto power. I think that would make a tremendous difference in the types of resolutions that come before the council. I think a lot more thought will be given to the process of budgeting priorities, for fear of the mayor, vetoing that. And so, without a doubt, I think it will benefit the citizens quite a bit.
What about the argument that a mayor with that kind of power introduces too much politics into city government? The argument for the system we have now, I don't believe this argument, but it's the argument that's made that we keep politics out of it. We have a professional government where Mr. Wolank and his staff professionally plan a budget, the council deliberates over it, and no one's jockeying for power with a powerful mayor. How do you respond to that?
I really don't see that happening at all. I think because you would have a mechanism where the council could override the veto.
Yeah.
That's your protection. There's always, if there were no override of the veto, yes, that could become a power trip for someone. And so with just veto power with an overriding mechanism by the city council, I think would work very well.
But it sounds like you think government in Oshkosh right now is not working very well. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's very fair. Government is not. Then this is the reason I'm running. I see in Oshkosh a deterioration of the standard of living in the city of Oshkosh. Through, for example, we've almost lost our middle income class of workers.
Yeah.
We don't have one non-discount department store in Oshkosh. The big retailers pass us by. There are a lot of things occurring in Oshkosh that are negative, and I was born here and I love Oshkosh, and it hurts me to see this, and I really sincerely just hope that I can do something to overturn this trend.
Okay.
All right. Dennis, there's been some talk about you possibly not being able to vote on the budget because you are a former city employee. You've addressed this in other venues by saying, quote, unlike the teachers union, where labor agreements sometimes apply also to retired teachers, city labor agreements contain absolutely no provisions for retirees. Now, you're still allowed to continue the health insurance provided by the city,
yes,
right?
I pay I pay the city $770 a month, which is 100% of the cost of my health plan. It's a reduced health plan with a lot of deductibles.
Okay. So, you know, some people could make the argument, and I know that on some of the blog sites they have actually, that you're still getting a benefit from the city even though you're paying 100% of the premium. Presumably under like a COBRA type arrangement. I'm not sure if that's what it's actually called, but and that you're getting a benefit that it might be more money if you had to purchase your health insurance outright. What would you respond? How would you respond to that?
I don't believe that. I mean, I believe I am paying 100% of that plan, and I believe as increases, and it has, as increases occur every year, my payment goes up every year, and so no, I don't believe, and the fact of the matter is, I think I can get this plan for less money outside the city. But the problem is I have a pre-existing condition, and I don't want to risk being dropped from another plan. But no doubt in my mind, I can get a plan for significantly less money per month. Per month.
Well, it could work that way too.
Per month, yeah. I always got the old mouth open.
Kind of one other question along those lines. If the city were to change insurance carriers, then obviously that would affect you. Now, not having served on the city council, is that a decision when you change insurance carriers? Is that a decision, do you know, that comes before the council? Or is that made strictly administratively? Or do you know?
I don't know the answer to that question. I would guess they would have to that would have to come to the council.
So if it did, then would you recuse yourself from that particular vote, because that would affect you, I think, in one way or another?
Well, if it would affect me in any way, I certainly would recuse myself from it. Sure.
Okay.
Sure, of course.
Dennis, when you were on the school board, you were very vocal when you thought that another board member had a conflict of interest. Say Teresa Thiel with her husband as a teacher. Would the same thing happen if you were on the Oshkosh Common Council? If you thought one of the 6 other members of the council had some conflict that they shouldn't vote, and you know they've gone to the city attorney, they've made a decision about whether they're going to vote or not, would you as a council member make it an issue?
Well, if I was sure that they had a conflict of interest.
But even in a situation where, let's say, the person has asked the city attorney, the city attorney says he or she can vote.
No, if a determination has been made that there is no conflict of interest, I certainly would have no issue with it.
Okay.
It wouldn't bother me in the least.
Okay. Can we move to the Leach Amphitheater?
Yes,
all right.
Sure.
What about the Leach Amphitheater at this point? Do you believe there should be a fee on that, a service charge, if you will?
Okay, you're speaking to the so-called maintenance fee?
Yeah.
Like on the tickets.
On the tickets.
Absolutely.
All right.
That amphitheater over the years will cost the taxpayers a tremendous amount of money.
Right.
Especially when you're talking about not only cleanup, but landscaping, cutting grass, cleaning, you know, vandalism, whatever it is. Don't ever believe that this isn't going to be a very costly item for the City of Oshkosh Parks Department. And so I believe we should have a fee.
Okay. Now, also, it's being managed by a Green Bay organization, PMI. They apparently are charging very high rates for groups who want to use it. Do you think that the city should use whatever leverage it has to tell PMI to make these rates more reasonable?
I mean for nonprofit groups.
For nonprofit groups.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, because as I stated, as time goes on, the teeter-totter will start going the other way. Maintenance will increase, deterioration of the site, the facilities, you know, the bathrooms, the plumbing, all of those things. Our costs will continually rise. And so somehow we have to recover some of that. And so it would be in our best interest to encourage as much participation as we can. The more people are there, the more money they make. We get our $30,000, which I think is a ridiculously low amount. Do you realize $30,000 probably doesn't even cover one city employee? Can you imagine how, I would like to know how much we actually, after a first full year, you might be surprised how many times 30 we spend on that, maintaining that facility. But we need all of the participation we can get. You get up to $20, $25. This is not Oshkosh spending.
Right.
You're talking out-of-town people, Oshkosh is happy with $7, $8. $30, it's going to detract from the participation.
Right. There's a controversy right now as we tape this about a statue that is being proposed for Menominee Park. It's called the Christmas Box Angel statue, and basically it's you know, for grieving parents who have lost a child or children to sort of go and, you know, seek some sort of solace and that kind of thing. And the reason it's at the center of a controversy is because there's a group based in Madison who feels that this violates the separation of church and state provisions of the Constitution. Now, at Tuesday night's Common Council meeting, Mayor Bill Castle said this is, as far as he's concerned, it's a done deal. The statue's going in. This group is saying, we're going to sue if you proceed forward. Where does Dennis McHugh stand on an issue like that?
Well, I see another issue in that. It might be even greater. Generally speaking, I don't tolerate political correctness. I don't like people telling me not to put up a religious creche or something like that. And but in this particular case, you know, I initially thought a different place would be better. For example, in a park you have a lot of vandalism. Okay, that's kind of pretty much a given. But look at the precedent it is setting. That's what concerns me. What group is going to come up next week? The Prisoners of War group, Mothers Against Drunk Driving group. Once you allow something like this, it really gives a right to just about anybody from requesting their part of the park to honor whatever they believe in too. That may or may never happen. But then coupled with that is the inevitable question about you know, a separation of church and state. And given all of those, I was just hoping that they would have found a more neutral site. And I don't know where that meets. I'll bet you could find a citizen that would give them a little piece of land.
Oh, absolutely.
Adjacent to the park, next to the park, maybe, and move it somewhere. But to plunk it in the park, you might as well put up a creche and hold church services, because it's in many people's minds it's the same thing, and not in my mind, but I'm just saying in many people's minds it's a big issue, and we're probably better off leaving the issue alone and encouraging the mom and dad to put this somewhere else.
Okay, all right.
We're out of time.
Well, we're out of time. Why don't you take a
are we already?
look at, we are. It went fast, didn't
wow.
it? Even doing it by yourself.
Okay.
Why don't you take a look into camera 3 there, Denny, and tell folks why they should vote for you on Tuesday, April 4th.
Well, with mixed emotions, I decided to seek the office of Common Council. On one hand, many revel in the hope of a beautiful, revitalized downtown. Our industrial parks are prospering. We are envied for our amphitheater, water park, and emerging zoo. Otherwise impossible dreams, but for the generous hearts of the type of Oshkosh people I admire. Our jewel of a river is finally receiving attention. On the other hand, our decrepit streets and new water runoff fee to support the deteriorating sewer system are evidence of a failing infrastructure. The growing vehicle fleet suffers with an antiquated vehicle maintenance and storage facility. Employers who once sustained a powerful middle-income workforce here can't seem to leave town fast enough. Non-discount department stores have vanished, and today's major retailers pass us by. Losing our commercial airline was a severe blow. Our city's tax-to-the-max leaders' cavalier response to living within the governor's 2% tax limit.
Denny, on that point, I'm afraid I'm going to have to wrap it up because we're out of time. I'm sorry.
All right.
But thank you very much, and I think folks get the message. So go to the polls on Tuesday, April 4th, and cast your ballot for the candidate or candidates of your choice.
Words are many when you vote for Denny.